Hello everybody and welcome to the bonus video for October 2025. I hope you've all been enjoying the Ringo ranking. That's right, it's finally out! This is the first bonus video I have made since that massive 4-hour, 40-minute behemoth was published, and how fitting that the winning topic for this month was how I made the Ringo ranking. This topic was actually submitted by more than one person, and I'm honestly so thrilled that it won by a landslide in the polls. Perhaps many of you are just that interested in the behind the scenes, but I also appreciate that some of you may have voted for this topic because it seems like the less taxing option for me personally, and to that I say, thank you so much, you are very kind. It has indeed been a very tiring month, a very rewarding month, but that final push really took everything I had. So to end October with a video that can serve as a reflection on the biggest project that I've ever worked on is well, I'm just very grateful for you guys. Thank you. Now, a few days ago, I posted in my Patreon feed that this was indeed the topic, and for you to please send in any questions you have about the Ringo video. And to my delight, about 70 of you sent in questions that I will be answering in the second half of this video, or the second part. I'll timestamp it down the bottom. Right now, what I thought I'd do is just tell you how this video came about, why it ended up being over 4.5 hours long. Look, I promise I'll try to not make this too dry. I don't want to bore you with too many details, but given how long of a journey this has been, particularly if we go, all the way back to the McCartney ranking, I think this warrants a reflection, no? However, like I said, if you do just want to skip to the Q&A, the timestamps are down the bottom. Okay, so I basically said this at the beginning of the Ringo video, but back in 2021, when I was making the Paul McCartney ranking, I had no real idea of how much detail I should put into that video. I could have talked for way longer about several of those albums and explored the headspace McCartney was in when he made, Red Rose Speedway or Flaming Pie, or, just included more historical tidbits and talk more about what else Paul was doing in that time, setting up his company, this, that, and the other. There's a lot of stuff I now realize I've left out of that video. But I didn't know how that video was going to be received. I'd barely been a YouTuber for a year. I'd only released a few videos. Plus, this was way back when I was balancing YouTube with my job at the time, and making that video any longer seemed fairly unwise. But now I look at the 2-hour runtime of the McCartney ranking and compare it to the length of the Ringo one, and it makes my video on Paul seem like an afterthought. So if we look at the timeline, just over 6 months on for the McCartney ranking, I released the John Lennon ranking in May 2022, and by then I've already got the Harrison one planned as well, having listened to all of George's albums during the period where I was editing John's video, filling in the gaps of what I hadn't already heard. And it was around this time, May 2022, that I took a trip to Europe and the UK, which was the trip where I visited Liverpool for the first time. I mentioned in the Ringo video that I was wandering around the English town of Canterbury by myself in 2022, listening to Bokups of Blues. Well, that's because it was around that time that I began trawling through Ringo's lengthy discography. This is how far back this video has been in the process. Well, look, I wasn't even sure at that time if I was making an album ranking video for Ringo or not, but I knew that if I was, I should start pretty early because there's a lot of music there. So 10 months on from the release of John's ranking video, I released George's ranking video, which takes us to March of 2023. Man, you guys, I can see why you were so impatient waiting for this video. You had to wait 6 months for John's, and then 10 months for George's, and 2 years and 7 months for Ringo's. But back in March of 2023, at this point, in terms of listening through Ringo's discography, I'd only really gotten up to the first half of the 70s or so, and I took a break from it. I still wasn't sure whether or not I was up to the task of making this ranking video. I jumped ahead a bit and listened to some of his more modern music and wasn't overly impressed, to say the least. I said this in the Ringo video, but I was really just considering a 15 to 20 minute video that would essentially act as a love letter to Ringo Starr, what I love about him as a person, my favorite of his solo songs, why I think his drumming in the Beatles was so amazing. But I never really felt too strongly about that kind of video either. Truth be told, after the George ranking, I remember really wanting to pursue other ideas that weren't just centered around the Beatles and 60s music, because I was concerned about being pigeonholed as a type of creator, you know, not wanting to be seen as just a Beatles YouTuber, but someone who covers all kinds of areas in music and film. This is why my output between the George and Ringo videos explored a lot of other topics as well, like the 2 Bob Dylan biopics, the Beach Boys 1977 album Love You, the spate of brand biopics from 2023, newer artists like the Lemon Twigs, Clairo, and the entire pop scene of 2024. Even though I knew pursuing those videos meant probably messing up the algorithm and risking fewer views, it felt important that I show my range. Now, however, I'm less concerned with being pigeonholed and I'm ready to lean into the Beatles of it all a bit more. People know that I'm at least capable of making videos about other topics. Like I've got a few under my belt now. I don't know why it's so important to me to show that I guess it's because I, as a person, I just have so many other interests outside of the Beatles. Beatles will always be like my biggest fandom thing, the thing I love the most. But when did I decide I was actually going to go through with the Ringo ranking? I can't remember exactly when, but it would have been late 23, early 24. The first proper notes where I sat down at a computer began in March of 2024. I know that. Although I didn't properly start writing until May of last year, after the Let It Be video. After that finished, I was like, all right, I'm writing the Ringo video now. Which is why there is a 4-month gap between May and September where there's no videos from me. That entire span of time was spent writing and shooting the Ringo video. I wrote solidly from the start of June 2024 until late August 2024, almost 3 solid months of writing. Then I filmed the video over the span of about 2 weeks in the final week of August and the first week of September 2024. I would shoot from about 1:30 p.m. until about 5:30 p.m. I just used the natural light here. I used this window. Excuse me, I'm going to move the camera. This is what gives me my light. I don't use a light source. This is it. So when the sun goes down, it gets dark, which is why, hello, there we go. When you scrub through my videos, like the lighting state changes all the time because it depends on if it's cloudy, if it's darker, if it's sunnier. It was winter when I was shooting the video, so I didn't have a lot of time and I had to start at 1:30 because otherwise the sun comes through this window. I should really get a different setup, but it's worked. It's worked until now. So yeah, that's that. But honestly, after 4 straight hours of talking, getting through probably about 9 pages worth of material, that's pretty much what I would get done in a day, about 9 pages. You can see I've uploaded the document on Patreon, single-spaced, size 11 font. By the end of that 4 or 5 hours, your voice is like gone. I've never lost my voice, but it's just, you don't feel like talking anymore. You don't have the energy for it. It takes a lot out of you. Gosh, I hope this is interesting to some of you. So yeah, I shot it in late August, early September 2024. In fact, if you go back and watch the Patreon bonus video from August of last year, it's the one where I talk about my other favorite music from the 1960s, you can see that I look the exact same as in the Ringo video. In fact, I'm wearing the MS Paint t-shirt underneath my hoodie, and at the end I talk about how after I finished filming that bonus video that I was shooting, that I was going to shoot a bit more for Ringo. I am currently finally filming the Ringo video. I'm actually going to film some of it right now, right after I record this one. And in that same video, I predict that I may have the video out in October, and then Ringo hopefully in October, I imagine. I mean, I was correct, just not about the year. Because something you got to know about me is that I am not great at determining how long things will take to make. I'm really just talking about my videos here. It's just really difficult to predict how long something takes to write, shoot, and edit, but I'm gradually getting better. If it's like a video that's under 40 minutes, I've probably got a good grasp, but because this video was so long, I just never knew how long it would all take, and it was always way longer than I thought. One of the other challenges of the Ringo video was trying to decide what I was going to wear. For Paul's, I wore a tour t-shirt from 2017. For John, I dressed up in his 1973 New York denim ensemble. And for George's, I went for my own spin on the Concert for Bangladesh look. Some of you, I imagine, may have been a bit disappointed that I didn't cosplay as anything for Ringo. I saw some people on Discord discussing what they hoped I'd be wearing. I saw suggestions earlier as well, such as going as Ringo in Caveman or shaving my head like he did in 1976. Ultimately, I thought the funniest option was to just screen print one of his most gaudy MS Paint or kid pics creations onto a t-shirt and just wear that the whole time. It also meant it wouldn't be like a chore to sit through like fake fur would be if I went as Ringo from Caveman. Also talking about his more, serious moments of his career might have looked a bit silly in a caveman costume. Not much less sillier in what I was wearing, to be honest. But also a t-shirt just means that it's going to be a pretty easy thing to wear through 58 pages of script. And that's how long the shooting script is, as you might already be aware. 58 pages, 41,700 words. Which brings me to my next point. Why is the video so damn long? Well, as I've pointed out, these ranking videos of the Solo Beatle catalogs are my most consistently high performing videos. When I get recognized in public, it's usually because people have seen one or more of those videos, typically the Paul and George ones. In fact, the Paul one is about a day away from hitting 1 million views. I dare say by the time this video is out, it will have surpassed that number. Let me see where we're at. We're at 997,000 at the moment. So getting there. And that's very nice. It would have been my first million for a video had the Steve Jobs biopic video not beaten it by just a few days, having hit the million on Tuesday. These are my first 2 videos to have achieved that milestone. So yeah, it's been a good month for me on YouTube so far. But anyway, even without the view counts, I knew the Ringo ranking would be popular just by virtue of how many people have been demanding it for the past 2 years. So taking that into consideration, I thought, well, I'm definitely going to make this ranking video. It's happening, but I'm not going to half-ass it. I know this is Ringo we're talking about, who I already knew didn't have as strong of a solo output as the other 3, but why should that limit the potential of the video, As I began writing about Ringo in the middle of last year, I started learning more and more about not just his music, but also about his movies, his artwork, his commercials, plus his many other odd side projects. Given that I didn't want people fatigued by mediocre album after mediocre album, I figured a way to break up the 20 album list, or 21 as it became, was to insert different chapters that served as a break from the music, where you could learn about all of Ringo's films in one hit, as opposed to just mentioning each film in bits as I'm going through the album rankings in whatever period I was up to. Like, oh, let's talk about That'll Be the Day during the Goodnight Vienna bit because they came out at a similar period, or whatever. That's the way I kind of did things for the other rankings, but I wanted to really make them their own segments just so it's easier to follow along. The fact that it's not chronological is already confusing enough, so just having things in a nice order was a necessity for this video. Something that I've mentioned a few times over the last year was that I wanted this video to be more than a music ranking. I wanted it to be like the go-to piece of media to learn anything about Ringo Starr outside of his time in the Beatles. I remember saying this actually at the end of that same bonus video from August of last year and feeling like, oh, am I biting off a little bit more that I can chew here? Am I being too lofty with this goal? I've really tried to make this video kind of a defining video on Ringo Starr. I know that makes me sound very pompous, but there's no documentary on Ringo Starr. No one's really made anything about his life. But something that's been really nice since the release of the Ringo video are the amount of people telling me I'm actually underselling the project by calling it just a worst to best ranking. That it's really, the definitive Ringo retrospective, or Ringo-spective, as I saw someone write. Basically that it feels more like a documentary than a typical tier list, which is very nice of people to say. And there is a reason that I opted to undersell the video with that title. Because something that irks me on YouTube is when someone makes a video about something and then in the title, they write in parentheses, full documentary or official documentary, like it legitimizes what they've made because they've deemed it to be a documentary. It's like you don't see Werner Herzog or Ken Burns tack on the word documentary to the title of their films. They don't have to because the work speaks for themselves. I think you should always let the work speak for itself. And for the record, I don't believe my Ringo video is a documentary per se. I'll leave that for others to decide. But for me, I think there's something more enticing about making a YouTube video that appears to be a simple album ranking and then, Trojan horsing in a much deeper documentary narrative inside of it. Set expectations so that they can be raised, not lowered. But that's just me. For this video, I also wanted to work differently than how I'd done in the past. See, beforehand, I would do my research and write my shooting script, shoot my parts of the video, and then do my best at sourcing clips that would be appropriate to play over the top or use as examples. That's the way I've pretty much always worked before this past year. But for Ringo, I began sourcing clips before and during the writing stage. This is what really elevates this particular video if I do say so myself, because it meant I could build my paragraphs and my arguments around real archival clips that I knew already existed, and I could make them more of a feature of my contention. It also meant that I could write jokes based around these clips or these images that I had already sourced, which really helped the humor of this video come alive more so than in other videos. Because yeah, the humor, the comedy, that was a big part of this video. I knew that if I was going to be talking about albums like Ringo Bad Boy Star and What's My Name, that I had a duty to highlight how silly and absurd much of this musical content actually is, and I had a lot of fun with that. There was just more opportunity for laughter with Ringo than say with George Harrison. You know, I mean, there's plenty of gags in the George video too, but you know, it's different with Ringo. He's just a sillier guy. And the final thing that I'll say as it relates to the writing and the length of the video is that between the George and the Ringo ranking, there were a few 3 to 4 hour videos that really inspired me as a YouTuber to make my work better, deeper, more compelling. Those videos include one from my favorite YouTuber, Jenny Nicholson, about the spectacular failure of the Star Wars Hotel, released in May 2024, which was just over 4 hours. And of course, there was H. Bummer Guy's almost 4 hour video on plagiarism on YouTube from December 2023. Those videos really elevated what it meant to be a YouTuber and to release YouTube videos, and I don't know, it just really galvanized me to make this Ringo video my best one yet. That's not to say that I think video length determines greatness. In fact, hot take, I think there are far too many videos on YouTube that are 3-4+ hours that are really just kind of rambly, indulgent, or basically missing a clear intention. They're long for the sake of being long. You know, they're long because that YouTuber doesn't know how to edit themselves. But hey, plenty of people may think that about me now, so who knows, you know? But back to the Ringo video, and now we're up to September 9th or so of last year. I've now finished filming it, and it's become crystal clear at this point that an October release date was not happening. So now I had to really consider my options. I could commence editing the video. It was all shot, I could edit it, but it was September at this point, and I hadn't released a video since May. If I started editing the Ringo video and then went on, because I had a trip to the States planned for October, November, a 3-week trip to the States, I knew then that the video probably wouldn't be done until the end of the year, maybe even early next year. And I looked at that timeline and just said, no, my last video that I released on this channel was a tiny recap on the Let It Be film. I need to release something else because my subscribers are, you know, they're going to be wondering what the hell happened to me. So that's when I decided to put the edit on hiatus. This is all documented. If you just skip to the end of all my Patreon bonus videos from last year, I pretty much detail all of this. So that's when I decided to put the edit on hiatus. But it was still at a point in time where I'm like, I need to put something out there. You know, I can't edit Ringo. What can I do? Well, I had become quite obsessed with this album by Clairo that had come out in 2024. So I figured I could knock off a 25-minute video about that and release it in September, which is kind of funny in hindsight that after 4 months of radio silence from me, the first video that people get is an analysis about the album Charm by Clairo. Probably not what a lot of people saw coming. And then all these other ideas for videos started tumbling out. You know, I knew I had to talk about Beatles 64, the upcoming documentary. Then I got very into the spate of incredible pop music from that year and wanted to make a big video about that. That's the other video I'm really proud of from this year. Then Midas Man came out, sort of. Then A Complete Unknown, and then Better Man. Better Man really took me by surprise, and that was just one where I was like, well, you weren't in the schedule, but I feel very compelled to make a video about this movie. And all the while, the Ringo footage was just sitting there on a hard drive waiting for my edit. And in the meantime, Ringo Starr himself had released an entirely new album that I knew I'd have to insert somewhere into the initial ranking. But once I'd finished the Better Man video, May 23rd, I published that. Once I completed the bonus video for May, because the bonus videos are always done at the end of the month, and it got to June, I realized I had clearance to finally start editing the Ringo video. It was a repeat of the year prior, where the end of May represented the time where I could start writing the video, and the end of May this year was the time I could start editing the video. And that's what I did. I mean, you would have seen if you've been a patron for the last few months that at the end of the bonus videos from like May onwards, it's just me being like, the update is I'm editing the video. And yeah, it was a hell of a period. I've never worked so hard on something in my life, but it was also a joy. This video is the most I've ever enjoyed editing my own work, perhaps since I've been a YouTuber. I felt really good about what I was making and knew people would be into it. I just had a very good feeling. Even though it's Ringo's solo albums we're talking about, I was very excited about this one. And it seems like I had cause to be excited because it's been received quite well. Then by August of this year, I saw I was halfway through the edit and I said it should be out in October at some point, which it was. I was a man of my word. But I knew I wanted to tease this video with my subscribers in a way that I hadn't done before. I really dig the song from Ringo Rama, I Think Therefore I Rock and Roll. I just always thought it was made for kind of like a trailer or something. It's just so like rousing and fun. So I took the vocals off the track and used it for a little teaser. I had recently realized that Ringo used the date of October 20th as the no more fan mail cutoff point. So I was like, well, I have to make this teaser like fit around that joke. In retrospect, it was slightly an ambitious target. I've learned I should probably just like give myself an extra like few weeks more than I think I need. But as you're all probably aware by now, the video was out before October 20th for patrons as promised, but it was delayed on YouTube due to copyright issues. So right now the Ringo video and all my videos, but the yesterday video actually, all of them are good to go for ad revenue, as in there's no copyright issues on any of them. Watch David Bennett Piano's video on YouTube Copyright if you want to know how this works. But in a nutshell, I use a lot of clips in my videos, and if those clips exceed about 7 seconds, sometimes you can get away with more than 7 seconds, sometimes it clips it at 6, it will flag and say only after you've uploaded the video there's a copyright issue, you can't make money on this video. You can trim it out, or you can dispute it, or you can upload it again. I didn't think that would be as much of a problem because throughout the period of editing the Ringo video, I was basically editing each album as its own individual project, and then I would export that project. So, you know, each album went for about 5 to 15 minutes or so on average, so they weren't big uploads. I would upload them, and if there are any problems, YouTube would let me know and I would just fix them, and then that was it. And then I got the first half done and I uploaded the whole first half, and there was like one problem that I took out, one copyright issue, and that was that. And I kept doing that. I kept just uploading chunk by chunk as the video went along. And so by the time I had to put it all together as one big thing, first of all, that takes fucking ages to export. It took me on my M1 MacBook Pro, not my iMac because it's slower. My MacBook Pro took me about almost 3 hours, I would say. The upload was worse. The upload, because it required the internet, and the internet could be spotty. Sometimes it was slow, sometimes it was fast. But the upload to YouTube took several hours, 5 or 6 hours, because it doesn't have to just upload it. It has to process the copyright problems. It has to do its checks. And it just took so long. And the checks for copyright are the last thing it lets you know after it's uploaded. So I would go through this process of spending 3 hours exporting, 6, 7 hours uploading. Sometimes there was one upload that took close to 10 hours. So basically you'd spend half of a day exporting and uploading to YouTube only to find out that there was a problem, and you'd have to start the entire process again. So I had to do that about 4 or 5 times over the course of a few days, and it ran over the October 20th cutoff point. I was really disappointed by that. I really wanted to come out on that date, but what are you gonna do? Some people were reacting so strangely when I announced that on YouTube. I saw someone be like, can you post it on Daily Motion? And I was like, do you know how this works? I have to make money from this video. Daily Motion, get the fuck out of here. Yeah, it was just so annoying because each upload, it found a different problem that it didn't find the previous times I'd uploaded it. So I was like, why didn't you, that's what's so annoying about the YouTube copyright system, is that during one upload, it'll flag one song, like the No song. And then the next upload, it'll flag Liverpool 8. And it's like, why didn't you flag that when you flagged the No song? Like, why aren't your checks consistent? I don't know. I don't know how it works, but now, like, I remember how relieved I felt when I saw this on my screen, this no issues found. I was like, oh my God, I can finally do it. I can finally publish this video. So yeah, then I published it, and that's that. And I've been very happy with how it's been received. Hello to all the new patrons. All right, let's go through these questions. I haven't organized them into any more cohesive lists. I'm just gonna go through them roughly from oldest to newest, and I'll try not to do any duplicate questions. All right, let's go. Jay McGray asks, is there a Ringo song that's been stuck in your head since you finished the video? I kind of always have Scouse the Mouse stuck in my head. My partner sings that one a lot as well. That gets a lot of rotation, even though it's not actually on streaming. I had Weight of the World stuck in my head because that was one of the songs I got copyright claimed, and I just got that song stuck in my head for a while. And yeah, there you go. Several spices of small furry animals gathered together in a... Well, I had to cut down your name in the Patreon credits. You can't be having a name like that in my Patreon credits, by the way. They also said, I know Scouse the Mouse has been stuck in their head, so there you go. 80 Lara asks, what was the one album from the Ringo video that you dreaded listening to while making the video? Truth be told, I didn't dread any beforehand or while I was making it. None of them are really terrible. That's something that I took away from this video, is that no album is like, oh god, that's so bad. None of them are like Beach Boys in the 80s bad, you know what I mean? They never got to that level. Even the Christmas album that I put as the worst, like I don't think it's even that bad of an album. Maybe I could have put it higher than Why Not, but let's not get into semantics now. Happy Ron Hill asks, do you think his biggest problem is song selection? Ringo's biggest problem, like in general? I think project selection. I think he had a bad time choosing projects. Like 70s and 80s, he just chose projects very poorly. I think he was probably lazy during that period as well. He just wanted to, you've seen the video, he just wanted to get drunk and crazy. A mix of impatience and laziness, I think, was his biggest issue. But since the 90s, he's been great. Andrew Kuda asks, what was the most surprising thing you learned about Ringo while making the video? I think a few people have actually asked this question. I'll just put them all here, everyone that asked the question. I guess the most surprising thing that I learned happened right towards the end of the editing process, and I'm really glad I caught this for the video. It actually is a blessing that this video is delayed. In late September, he gave an interview with the Associated Press where he admitted that it wasn't MS Paint necessarily, or it might have been MS Paint, but he said that the program he used was KidPix, or KidsPix as he called it. That was such a revelation, to be honest, when Ringo announced that, because it was like everyone calls that artwork MS Paint artwork. If you search for it anyway, it's known as Ringo's MS Paint artwork. And to find out that it was actually KidPix that he used the whole time was like, it was like a twist in a story. It was just like, oh man, everyone's been crediting this to MS Paint, and it wasn't. Unless he used both. We still don't know. Next one from Cole Switzer. This kind of goes for all the rankings, but how do you listen to the albums and how long did it take to listen to all 21? Like, do you use speakers, headphones? Did you use a CD/record for any of them, etc.? So Ringo was an interesting case because I had to figure out a way to listen to some of the albums without streaming because some of them aren't on streaming. What I would do, I have a pretty slick routine for how I listen to my music. So I'll go for a walk. I'll sometimes maybe smoke a jazz cigarette beforehand, and then I'll go on a walk with the album. And I won't take any notes, I'll just listen to it, maybe pick up a few things from the supermarket and just listen to the album. That is my routine for pretty much every first listen of an album I'm doing a ranking video for, or kind of any album really. I just like to go on walks. Then I will listen to it again at my desk with headphones on. I use my AirPods Max headphones. I just like them. They just work for me. And I'll take notes as I'm listening through each song. These are the notes that you can see. I uploaded them on Patreon a few days ago. The notes document, that's that document. So that's me kind of on my second listen, going through song by song, taking notes about each song that I hear, what I think of it, and then I'll leave 1 or 2 paragraphs at the end of the album of like what I think about it overall. What textures do I like? Did I notice a difference in his lyrics? Or just all those kind of aesthetic qualities of the album. And then, so that's just 2 listens, right? Then before I write the full thing, so we're not just talking about notes now, we're talking about the actual text of the script that I'll read for that portion of the video. I'll listen to it again. I'll probably listen to it quite a few times. If it's an album that I really don't like, I think, the 3 times listening to it will have sufficed, but that would have been the minimum that I listened to an album before I wrote about it. If it's an album that I really liked, then I'll listen to it way more times. I'd known the album Ringo, I'd known Goodnight Vienna, I'd known Bookers of Blues. I've known about those albums for years now. So, it was a matter of just re-engaging with those. But if they're new albums and I like them, like a lot of the ones in the top 10, I would have listened to several times, gone back to quite a few songs. And then I will listen to them because maybe I'm a sucker for punishment. During the editing stage, I also re-listened to the albums. Not because I was writing about them or had new thoughts about them, just so I could get into the headspace of those albums again and hopefully infuse some of the energy of the album into the edit. Yeah, I use headphones. I listen to them in the car as well if I'm driving. That's that, yeah. Garrett Old, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. Maybe I shouldn't read out the names, but I'm going to continue. Garrett asks, hi, I'm curious because of how much dedication you put into this video. I know the moments couldn't always be easy, It Don't Come Easy. Which was the most challenging part of listening through the discography, actually sitting and listening through each and every song, or trying to find words to say about all the songs? That's a good question too. These are all good questions. Well done, everyone. Listening to music is not a chore for me, but one of the toughest parts of the video, as it pertains to his music especially, was just like that mid-2000s and mid-2010s period where he was just kind of remaking the same album. I feel like in the 2000s, he was just trying to remake like Vertical Man and Time Takes Time. And in the 2010s, he was just remaking Why Not, basically. Like, all those albums that he produced for himself. The 2010s albums especially was the toughest slog because he released an album basically every 2 years and they sounded so similar. Like, Why Not, Ringo 2012, and Postcards from Paradise may as well all be the same album, to be honest with you. Trying to find ways to distinguish songs like Peace Dream to Right Side of the Road or Bambula or all these other nonsense songs from the 2010s, that was difficult. Another tricky part as well was there's a part in the video, I think it's the bit where I talk about Give More Love to Choose Love, his 2017 album and his 2005 album. I feel like that's the most sluggish part of the video because I've just been talking about so many mediocre albums, and then I finally get to the art bit and I was like, oh, am I just indulging too much here? Like, is this interesting? That's the only part of the whole process where I was like, is this interesting what I'm talking about? Is this so dull? Yeah, trying to find words to say about all the songs was tricky. Fortunately, I didn't talk about every single song because why would I do that to myself? Why would I do that to you guys? Nora Mac asks, now that you've done exhaustive deep dives into 3 of their solo careers, do you think you'll ever do an updated Paul ranking a few years down the line that goes more in depth into the circumstances of each album? Yes. I've been thinking about this because I was actually going to talk about this earlier in this video, but I thought I'd save it till now because I saw someone ask this question. Yeah, I do want to do that because it doesn't feel right that I've, given you a mini documentary on an album like Stop and Smell the Roses or Choose Love, but I haven't gone into nearly enough detail about Tug of War or Wings at the Speed of Sound or Flaming Pie. There's so much more I would love to talk about Paul McCartney. There's so much about his life, his relationships, his circumstances at the time that I would love to go into it because he's my guy. He's the one whose solo career interested me in the first place. So yeah, I would like to. I don't know when I would do that. It could make sense to do it in 2031, 10 years after the original Paul McCartney ranking. And honestly, like that timeline checks out based on what else I've got planned over the next few years, now that I know how long things take. But yeah, there's definitely something to be said for the 10-year anniversary, or, once Paul has left this mortal coil and, see how many albums he's given us since then. Short answer is, yeah, I don't know if that would be so indulgent. I've never heard of someone remaking a YouTube video, but I would be down. Zach Antle asks, which album or song was the hardest to get through, and given the somewhat lacking quality of a lot of Ringo's music, did you ever find yourself wanting to abandon the video? It never got that bad. It never got to the point where I was like, this, I don't want to do this anymore. Ties into what I said before. The period that was the toughest to get through, because I listened to his albums chronologically, was like when I got up to the late 2000s and the 2010s. It all just felt like the same thing time and time again. Particularly once I got to like Postcards from Paradise and Give More Love, I was like, when will this end? The thing about that was like, oh, that's funny. Me struggling listening through all these albums is something I can include in the video here. Like the struggle is real, and the struggle is something that will entertain people, I think. So yeah, hopefully it entertained you all. Rio asks, what did you think or hope the Ringo biopic will cover? I wonder if it will take a Love and Mercy approach to focus only on a certain era, probably during the Beatle years. Well, yeah, it's a Beatles biopic, so I think it will be the Beatle years. I have a feeling that because they announced the casting for the wives and girlfriends of the Beatles in the latter period of the 60s, and they announced them first, I do have a little feeling that one or all of the biopics will cover life beyond the Beatles. Maybe the first few years, or maybe there'll be like a flash forward or epilogue sequence or something like that where we learn about what they do in the 70s. Because they've cast guys that are old enough that they could also pass for the Beatles in pretty much any period of the 70s. So I think that's possible. But what do I think the Ringo biopic will cover? Rio, I don't know. I don't know what these movies are going to be. I don't know how they're going to be structured. I truly do not know. I think in Ringo's, a major theme will be, it don't come easy. this guy almost died as a kid, and look where he is now. You know, like I think that'll be the thing with Ringo, is that he's kind of this underdog. And that will be the major theme of the film. Killen Bellard asks, how did your opinion of Ringo as a musician and as a person change from when you started the project compared till the end? Well, I think I definitely have way more of a softer spot for Ringo. Like, I've always loved Ringo. He's a Beatle, and I love the Beatles. But I, like, this anthology stuff is coming out now, and I'm looking at Ringo, because I'm so used to Ringo post-Beatles now, and I'm seeing him in the Beatles, and I'm like, oh, there he is. There's that guy. I've been in the world of Ringo Starr for a while, so I just have just a genuine affection for him. I love seeing him in the Beatles because it's like, look at you, man, you did it. You're here with like the most talented musicians on the planet, the most talented songwriters on the planet, and you're their drummer. Like it's just so good. But I really do love how much he can just sit into a song. How someone can just start playing. All he needs is a guitar or something, and he can just get into it. And it's good every time. It's just he's so good every time, you know? And something else I'll mention is that Ringo's always been the most kind of human of the Beatles. He's our window into that world of the Beatles. You know, he's the most, I guess, normie of all of them, that like people can relate to Ringo, you know? I've learned that he could get very dark. I think he got to depths in his psyche that the other Beatles never got close to, maybe with the exception of John. There's a lot more to just the, you know, happy-go-lucky exterior. But I've always loved him before making this video and after making this video. I just know a lot more about him now. Maxwell Ziabis asks, in all seriousness, I'd be interested in knowing how you kept yourself sane between listening to back-to-back mediocre Ringo albums. Did you have particular albums from other artists you listened to as a reset or some other system in place? Truth be told, it wasn't that hard listening to the albums. Again, none of them are really bad. Like, he never made really bad music. You know, some of them were disappointing and too familiar. In terms of listening to other artists as a reset, I suppose I did that, but I always do that. I always like to keep my what I'm listening to fairly diverse and, you know, make sure I'm listening to a bunch of different artists at any one time. But I'm kind of weird. Like, if I'm making a project about that thing, even if I've listened to like that music a bunch of times, in this case Ringo, I'll get so into like what I'm making that I'll just keep listening to the music. Like I'll keep putting on his music because I just want to stay in that world, because it helps me just get into the edit, get into the writing. Like, you might think, oh, you must have been so sick of it, you must have just wanted to do anything else other than listen to Ringo Starr. But I kind of motivate myself into that mood. If I have to work on Ringo, then I'm going to listen to a lot of Ringo and I'm going to enjoy it. I would never do something to like punish myself to that extent. Yeah, I don't know. I just it never really got that bad for me. I would listen to other artists when I felt like listening to them, and I'd go back to Ringo when I needed to. Madison Garrett asks, after listening to Ringo's discography, how would you describe it to someone who's never listened to it? What would be your personal recommendations, full albums, songs, etc.? How would I describe it? Well, party. That's how Ringo describes it. In 1976, he was having an interview in Denmark or somewhere in Scandinavia or something, and they're like, what's the vibe of the album? And he says party. And I think that is Ringo in a nutshell. Like, he's always just trying to recreate that party atmosphere that was on the original Ringo album in 73. That is the most consistent theme of his albums. In the 90s, he then mixed that in with, you know, peace and love. He always tries to include the lyrics of peace and love into most of his songs. Pop rock is his stuff that he's been making the last 30 years. Loosely Beatles inspired pop rock. If you listen to any Ringo music from the 90s and the 2000s, it's Beatle influence left, right, and center. From 2010 onwards, it's Ringo produced pop rock. And from 70s and 80s, it's, loose party vibe, basically. Any personal recommendations? Well, you know which albums I like the most. I think someone else asked for my favorite songs as well. I think there's another question in here about my favorite Ringo songs. So let me try to give you my top 5 Ringo songs right now. In no particular order, I would say, when you actually do try to condense it, it is tricky. Love Don't Last Long from Boku's the Blues. It Don't Come Easy, Photograph. Actually, It Don't Come Easy or Back Off Boogaloo, one of those. Pick one of the singles. Goodnight Vienna, Snookeroo. All right, he actually has quite a few songs, doesn't he? The No No song is so killer. Love Cooking in the Kitchen of Love. Drumming is My Madness is a sick song. My favorite songs would be those ones from the 70s, from the early 70s that I just mentioned. Honestly, I truly think one of his best songs is Crooked Boy from last year. I think that is the best song Ringo has made since the 1990s. I think you could compare it with something like King of Broken Hearts, which George Harrison played guitar on. I think you could compare it to Weight of the World, another great song from the 90s. I guess another thing I could say about that is my underrated picks would be, Love Don't Last Long, because no one would pick that out of a lineup. Simple Love Song from Ringo the Fourth, Scouse the Mouse, of course. Simple Love Song from Ringo the Fourth, Scouse the Mouse, obviously. Tonight from Ringo Bad Boy Star, the cover of Sure to Fall from Stop and Smell the Roses. I Was Walking from Vertical Man is great, really good drums in that one. And I think Therefore I Rock and Roll is a barn burner in my opinion. Braille asks, was there anything about Ringo you wanted to cover or mention but you didn't due to time constraints or other reasons? Well, I think it's pretty clear that I threw all time constraints out the window when I started making this video. No, honestly, this video, I was like, I'm making this comprehensive. I'm making this encyclopedic. I'm including everything I can possibly find about Ringo whilst making it entertaining. There's that clip from Popstar Never Stop Never Stopping, that cameo clip of Ringo Starr.
He's writing a song for gay marriage. You know, like it's not allowed. It's allowed now.
I was going to include that somewhere, but I just forgot to, or couldn't find anywhere to put it. But no, anything co-curricular outside of music, I think I included. And that proves to be true since releasing the video. Like, no one's been like, you didn't talk about this, you didn't talk about this, which happens with every video I've ever posted. Someone's been like, I wish you talked more about this, I wish you talked more about this. But kind of no one's done that this time around. Everyone's just been like, wow, this was fucking massive. Trey Nino asks, what is your favorite Ringo-led song from the Beatles discography? Mine is What Goes On, Trey says. I say my favorite song that he leads, so not necessarily wrote, but sung, I think Yellow Submarine and Octopus's Garden are just my two favorites. Like, they're just, like, Octopus's Garden, I think, is really quite an achievement. Musically, it's really good. And Yellow Submarine is just iconic. And Ringo's voice is just perfect for those songs. I love Goodnight. And yeah, I would say those two. Tony Young, I have two questions. One, what was the most surprising thing you learned about Ringo? I've answered this. Is there any way to watch the Ogna Rats movie? Yes, just go on YouTube, type Ringo Starr 1978 and you'll find it. Several species of small furry animals gathered together, blah, 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 asks, what made you want to go so deep into Ringo's life in this video, and do you wish you went that deep for Paul's ranking? Well, I think I've mostly answered this question, but I'll kind of reiterate that I wanted to go so deep into Ringo's life because, to my knowledge, there's nothing else out there. Take away all of his music, there's not even really a documentary that I know of that goes into Ringo's life just in general. He's probably the person with one of the most recognizable names in the world that most people know next to nothing about. Outside of those years where he was in the Beatles, Ringo Starr, I think, is a huge question mark for a lot of people. And that was another reason why I wanted to go really deep into this subject. Also, and I've said this, but they are just popular videos. I knew it would do well. The longer I make it, the more money I can make from it as well. Not to be cynical. I mean, I didn't make this video just to make money. I wanted to make this video as a celebration of Ringo Starr's life and to complete the quadrilogy with all the others. But yeah, that should answer your question. Noah Langworthy asks, what's your thoughts on him playing on the California Calling from the Beach Boys? Oh, that terrible album. Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't have remembered it, and I don't remember it much myself. Personal FX81, how do you guys come up with these names? Says, I'd like to know which Ringo media appearance was the most interesting, surprising, amusing in your research. That Monday Night Football intro, Thomas the Tank Engine, Japanese Drinks, his spectacular cameo in Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. Which Ringo appearance was the most interesting? I think his appearance on chat shows in like 1980-81 are the most like illuminating bits of video on Ringo Starr. They're just so fascinating because it's that point just before and just after John's death where Ringo is really hitting the bottle hard and he's just acting like kind of a jerk, and he really lets the mask slip a lot of the times, and it's just like, wow, you're seeing the depths of someone's soul right there, and they're trying to mask it with jokes and tomfoolery, and it's just like no other Beatle has acted like that in public to my knowledge. And it was just so like, man, he was going through it at that time. Obviously not the most funny, but the most interesting for sure. But I don't want to make it too dark, so I'll say in addition to that, the most amusing was his appearance on the Jonathan Ross show in 2008, you know, during that Ringo's Messy Year chapter, where Jonathan Ross asked him about Liverpool. Do you have any fun memories? And he's like, no. Just kickstarting that whole period where he became the villain of Liverpool. And also like him talking about the USB wristband and Jonathan Ross being like, yeah, but people can lose them, right? And Ringo's like, I guess. I don't know. That whole interview is just really funny to me. Ringo in the mid to late 2000s, I think, was him at his funniest. I just love him during that period. Magda A asks, how are you mentally after this? Oh, thank you, Magda. Will you be incorporating some of your favorite Ringo songs to your daily listens whenever his song fits the vibe you're going for? Or will you stay clear away from our good pal Ringo for a while? Hope you're doing well, Elliot. Well, thank you. Thanks for looking out for me. Yeah, I definitely will be. One of my friends that I follow on Apple Music. I don't follow anyone but like 2 people on Apple Music, but he follows me, and he saw that I had been listening to some Ringo albums while I was in the last stages of editing, and he's like, why are you possibly listening to more? Like, aren't you sick of it? I was like, no, this is what I was speaking to before. Like, if I'm involved in a project, I want to like immerse myself, not just at the times where I'm working. I want to listen to his music when I'm going for a walk or whatever. It just keeps me in that headspace. But yeah, I will definitely be listening to some Ringo. The songs that I've grown to appreciate even more than after writing it, since editing it. Because, you know, when you're editing, you've got to listen to so many clips over and over because you're spacing them out so they fit properly and everything. So I've really heard a lot of his music recently. Yeah, I'll be listening to more of his stuff for sure. And in terms of how I'm doing mentally, I'm doing great. I am so happy this video is out. One of the biggest challenges of working on this video for so long, including the 4 months last year when I wrote and filmed it, and this year when I was editing it, the toughest part for me was just those months where I was releasing nothing, and there was a few points where I'm like, I don't feel like I'm a YouTuber anymore. I don't feel like I have much of a presence online at the moment because I was just staking all my stocks on this video. And now that it's out and people can watch it and they've got something big and meaty to chew on for a good long while now, I feel very satisfied with that. I feel like, hey, here's the big video that I've been working on. Here it is. Go and enjoy. Like Jenny Nicholson hasn't released another video since May of last year. You know, H Bomber Guy hasn't released a video since December 2023. I won't be taking that long, don't worry. But I just feel like you've got my latest thing now, and I feel happy about that. And I feel personally also satisfied in that regard. Like I feel like, wow, I completed this thing that took probably an accumulative 9 to 10 months of my life. It's very satisfying because I've got lots more that I want to work on in future. I don't now feel like, oh, what am I doing? I feel good to continue on with life. And I've had a great week of doing next to nothing. I've had a really nice week of leisure where I bought the video game Donkey Kong Bonanza on the Switch 2, and I didn't play it. I was so disciplined. I didn't play it the whole time that I was working on the Ringo video. That game came out in July, and I've been waiting to play it. So I've been playing it a lot of this week, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. So yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Jesse Hart asks, is there any bands you got into that played with Ringo while going over his discography? Jellyfish, Joe Walsh, etc. I got a little bit more into the band because he played his first all-star band, had like Rick Danko and Levon Helm from the band. So I was listening to the all-star band version of Up on Cripple Creek from like 89. It's so good. But yeah, otherwise not really. I listened to a bit of Jellyfish last year when I was doing research for the Lemon Twigs video. So outside of that, not too much. Ryan Light asks, at what point when you were putting the video together did you go from dismissing the project to actively wanting to exploring his life and projects in depth? That's a good question, but I do think I answered it in the first half of the video. Scholar Mark asks, how much drumming has Ringo done for other people's tracks? Watching the video, I just kept thinking, I understand why he doesn't join another band after having been in the bloody Beatles, but it seems so clear to me that Ringo's strength is as the drummer of a band, not as a solo artist. How much has he been involved in other people's music? I'm actually not entirely sure about this one. It's not really an area that I delved too deeply into. I thought Ringo drumming on other people's tracks was just getting like, even for the 4-hour mark, I was like, I can't include that. That's going into too much detail now. So you'll have to look that one up yourself. Same person asks, will you ever do another discography deep dive like this? I'd love to see one for Danny Harrison. I recently got into his stuff. He did with the new number 2. That might be outside your wheelhouse, and you'd be well within your rights to never do another deep dive again after this monster of a video. I definitely want to do more of these. I'm not so naive that I don't know that these are the biggest sellers of my channel, and I like doing them. In my future, I foresee doing ones for the Beatles, for the Beach Boys. The two ones that really scare me are Bob Dylan and David Bowie. They're the ones that I'm like, whoa, there's just so many albums. There's so many albums. But yeah, I think I will do these throughout my YouTube career, however long it lasts. Peter Melling asks, having now heard all the discography, what Ringo songs would you keep or replace from the Rob Sheffield solo Beatles list? Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Probably the ones I was mentioning before. Crooked Boy, I would put in ones like I Was Walking, I would put in ones like King of Broken Hearts, English Garden. Sorry, Martha's snoozing in the background. I don't know if she's coming through the mic. Yeah, I'd have to look at that list again, but that would be mostly pretty similar, I think. Florence May Vintage asks, what sort of film or character do you think would have been a perfect fit for Ringo if he had done more with acting? Interesting. Well, we know he was very good at kids stuff, so I think he could have done a lot more like kids TV or movie appearances. I would have loved him to play like another Liverpool character, you know, in like some gritty drama or something like that, like someone's uncle or some down on his luck guy, like maybe bring a bit of his own downtrodden life experience into a role, like more of that stuff that he did in That'll Be the Day. Something a bit serious, something that wasn't just a sex romp, because he was capable of it. He was capable of it. He was capable of working hard. He just didn't like to do it for too long of a time. So I don't think television ever would have been in his future because he just couldn't commit to projects for that long. It's a shame we didn't see him in more stuff. Tom Stansfield asks, whether during his time in the Beatles or in his solo career, which song do you think showcases Ringo's best drumming? He always says Rain, and I would probably concur with that one. I think The End has great Ringo drumming. Something has really good drumming. I'm just editing this and I forgot to say Tomorrow Never Knows. Obviously, one of Ringo's all-time best drumming tracks by a country mile. Instant Amnesia from Ringo Rama has really good drumming. I think I Was Walking from Vertical Man has really good drumming. Back Off Boogaloo obviously has an iconic drum part. I really like a lot of Ringo's early Beatles drumming as well. Like I love the drumming on Please Please Me. I think it's really good. I love watching Ringo drum in a lot of the early live Beatles clips. They're live versions of Nowhere Man, even though the three vocalists couldn't really ever get their shit together when they performed that live. Ringo does a lot of really nice fills when he drums on that song. There's another clip as well. Paul's doing the lead vocal on I'm Down, and he starts flubbing the lyrics and he starts laughing, and Ringo immediately comes in with the drum fill to like Paul just like you hear him just go quiet from laughter. Ringo just immediately follows, like he just fills in all the gaps. He's so amazing. Florence May Vintage also asks, what are your favorite fashion moments or outfits from Ringo? Which year or decade do you think he was the most stylish? A few people ask this or a version of this question, so I'll just put them all here. I really like late 60s Ringo, like Ringo in 1969. All the Beatles in 69 looked amazing. But Ringo 69, 70, 71, that was a great period for him. He had that shit on, as the kids would say. I honestly think he looked good throughout much of the 70s as well. Ringo's always had pretty good style. There's not really a bad decade in my opinion. He was experimenting from when in his time with the Beatles into, you know, like the 90s. He had a lot of good fits. I've never liked his short hair that he had from like the mid 90s to pretty much the pandemic. He had like that buzz cut. I never thought that looked good on his face. I don't know if it's a hair transplant or what, but his hair in his 80s, in the 2020s, has been so much nicer. He's grown it out a bit in his uniform of Adidas tracksuit pants and whatever else. Yeah, early 70s. Ringo out and about, he just looked great. He also permed his hair a few times in the 70s. I know George Harrison did that, but Ringo did it too, including in 1973. He had a big perm. That looked okay, I guess. Tyler Piper asks, who were Ringo's drumming influences? He seemed to have taken to drumming so strongly and so quickly, but I wonder if he's ever talked about his favorite drummers when he was growing up, or perhaps even songs or albums that had a big impact on his drumming style / want to be a drummer. He has talked about this a little. He gets asked this question, I believe, I could be wrong, but in the 2008 HBO document, I think it's called Ringo Starr Off the Record, with Dave Stewart, and he gets asked about his influences. Maybe it's on something else. He doesn't have like the equivalent of like Carl Perkins for George Harrison or Elvis Presley for John and Paul. He didn't have like one guy who was like, I just wanted to be like him. I think he was inspired by just all the rock drummers from the time, like Little Richard's songs. I think he's named other people, like those jazz drummers. I don't know, what's his name? Cozy Cole, or like the Cab Calloway drummer. Yeah, sorry, I can't think of it right now. Let me look it up. Yeah, Chico Hamilton, Cozy Cole. Now I'm just looking it up. You could probably look this up. I don't know off the top of my head because it's it's truly nothing that he ever really spoke about. He didn't speak about influences like that. He also gets asked it in, I think, the 1995 interview on Donahue. He gets asked a very similar question, and he just doesn't have too much of an answer around this. He just does his own thing. He drums by feel and not always been very articulate and open in that area. Sonic Guy asks, what are your personal favorite Ringo jokes, memes, or tweets? I like the tweet where he asks Jimmy Fallon to stop tweeting at him. I think that's really funny. I don't even know the basis around it. I just think that's hilarious. I love the No More Fan Mail video. I mean, it's iconic for a reason. I quote it all the time with my friends and family. I love that video. I love his appearance in The Simpsons. I made a t-shirt out of his MS Paint art, so I love that. He's not even the sort of guy who has jokes, but he's just, I don't know, he's just funny himself. Someone else asking for my top 10 Ringo Starr songs. I gave you a rough list. You can ascertain my favorites from the playlist. Rangapa Kumar asks, since I recently watched the show BoJack Horseman, I couldn't help but notice the parallels he has with Ringo Starr. Oh, very true. Kind of tragic alcoholism, addiction kind of narrative. Yeah, did you notice it too? I mean, I hadn't until right now, but yeah, that's that works. Ovidio Medis asks, which Ringo Starr original would be the best lip sync song on RuPaul's Drag Race? Great question. Well, we need a song that you could like dance to. You need like a fast beat. Ooh, gosh, that's a really good question. I think the No-No song would be really good for RuPaul's Drag Race. Even though it's not very up-tempo, you could really make a moment out of it. You could bring out the theatrics for the No-No song and make it kind of funny, you know, one of those more Jinx Monsoon-y funny kind of lip syncs as opposed to like death drops and all that. You could do Snookeroo because it's got that narrative element. You could really make it quite theatrical and fun. Yeah, let's go with that. Jacob Miller asks, off the top of your head, what do you think is the wildest moment of Ringo's Thomas narration? Oh, I don't know. I'd have to watch all episodes that he was involved in, which I think is only like 1 or 2 seasons. But I don't know. I didn't watch through all. I just didn't have time. This video wouldn't be out yet if I watched all of his narration on Thomas the Tank Engine. You'd have to ask a Thomas fan that one. Not that I'm not a fan. I just don't know. Justin Kinner, I don't know how to pronounce it, asks, I know you mentioned you didn't get to listen to much of Ringo's live stuff in the video, but have you had the chance to hear any of it since that recording? Personally, my introduction to solo Ringo was the VH1 Storytellers album. I definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't heard it. Yes, that is a good album. I did listen to that because I like that he gives a bit of historical context and he talks about the songs and where they came from. That is good. I have actually listened to that. I haven't listened to much else. I love his first All-Star Band. I think they are poppin' when they play live. I am addicted to listening to their version of Honey Don't from 1990. I throw that up on YouTube all the time because it's that bop shoo up, bop shoo up. Honey don't bop shoo up, bop shoo up. Honey don't bop shoo up, bop shoo up. Honey don't bop shoo up, bop shoo up. I just love that. That's so good. Like, since the video's finished, I haven't been like, all right, now to listen to more of his live stuff. I haven't gone that far, but yeah, it's when he's more young and he's got more of that vitality. I enjoy that. Mr. Spaghetti. Mr. Spaghetti. That's a good name. Mr. Spaghetti asks, now that you've ranked the solo albums of all 4 Beatles, if your favorite album from all 4 got into a 4-way death match, who's coming out on top? Also, bonus video, Hunger Games with all solo Beatles albums. I don't even know how that works. What, do they all kill each other? Well, you guys should know this. I said what my favorite solo Beatles album was in the George video, which is All Things Must Pass, followed by Ram. After that, I don't know. A few people have asked me the question of, am I going to combine them, like all the solo rankings into one video? No, there would be no point in doing that. I may as well just release that as a list and just post it as a text post because I've already given all my thoughts about the albums and about all the songs. So what would a new video do. All I'm doing with that is basically just like pitting these great albums against each other and being like, well, Plastic Ono Band is better than Band on the Run because of this, this, and this, and then it just gets ugly. It's like, again, it's like, who am I to say that? I don't have any authority there. So no, I won't be doing that. Chloe Minish asks, Ringo and the use of the Simpsons clips and quotes, a result of his famous sense of humor or evidence of your descent into madness after listening to so many albums and days of filming? That's my sense of humor. I love the Simpsons. I've just like any millennial kid, I grew up with that. It was on 6 p.m. every night on Channel 10 for any Australian kid, you'll remember. And it's just built into my brain. Like those jokes are the foundation of my sense of humor. There was just a lot of parallels for me for some reason with this video with Ringo and The Simpsons. Not just including his appearance, the fact that he's one of the first guest appearances on The Simpsons, but I really did think he sounds like Krusty the Clown on Ringo the Fourth. I don't know, there's just a lot of jokes that were in my head when I was thinking about the writing of this video, and I was like, oh, it's like that Simpsons bit. Oh, it's like that Simpsons bit. And whenever that came up, I was like, well, just make that a joke. Just put that bit into the episode. So I did. Thomas R asks, do you think there was anything Ringo could have done differently that could have changed the trajectory of his solo career? Yes, I definitely do. I think if he had stopped drinking or drinking in excess, if he stopped that earlier in the 70s, he could have made more cogent decisions about where his music career was going to go. If he took the approach that he took for Time Takes Time, if he took that from, the mid 70s onwards, he could have, I think, worked with more compelling artists, younger artists. If Ringo was maybe a bit more attuned to what was coming out in the radio, in the top 40, if like Paul McCartney, if he had a bit more of an intuition for new sounds and that kind of thing, I think his solo career could have gone very differently. I think it's a curiosity that Ringo lacks, to be honest with you. It's a curiosity for what else is out there. There are definitely other artists that Ringo likes to listen to, but an ability to be more open with more of what was coming out at that time. And just wanting to do that, not just wanting to show up, sing a few bars of a cover song, and then go out and drink with your friends. I think if he took it more seriously, but he wasn't taking it seriously. Oscar H asks, the Little Lemmy cameo during the segment about Ringo's virtual gallery was really funny. Are you a fan of his stuff? Yeah, from time to time, his clips come up for me every now and then in whatever feed I'm scrolling through. I think he's a funny guy. I just saw that when I was doing research for the video, and it just made me laugh so much, and I had to include it. But yeah, I like Lemmy. Nathan Hinchcliffe asks, new Patreon member but long-time watcher, sorry for the delay. My question relates to the auto-tune. Do we know why this is featured so heavily in his recordings? Has anyone/Ringo talked about it publicly? Not that I can see. I don't think anyone's been bold enough to ask him. He says he uses the vocoder for that song Money in What's My Name, which was the excessive auto-tune. But he's always been a bit of a pitchy singer, but it is something I would like to ask him if I ever was to ask him. During those albums where you produced by yourself, why did you decide to use so much auto-tune? T-Bone Burnett and Linda Perry really helped him to rein that in, and it's thank God for that. Gabby G asks, what part of making this video was the most surprisingly challenging or labor-intensive? I know you didn't anticipate the whole process taking so much time, but the end result was incredible, so I hope you feel it was all worth it. I know we fans do. Thanks, Gabby. The most challenging or labor-intensive part of it was not realizing how long it would take. It was that point every so often when I get to a new milestone in the video and I would go, oh, I have all this to go. This video is not going to be out by this time. This video is not going to be out by this time either. It felt very daunting to film it all. When you've got 58 pages of dialogue and, even just filming one page of a script can be a lot sometimes if you don't get it right, if you're just having an off day. So that was very intimidating. I had such a joy making this video at every stage that it wasn't too labor intensive. Actually, the most intimidating part of the process was that part where I've got everything filmed and I lay out all the raw footage of all the video takes of me reading the script, lay them all out with all the mistakes and all the ums and ahs included. I think it was something like 20 hours of footage that I had to comb through. 20 hours, which whittled down to 6, which then was whittled down to about 4.5. It's just that bit in the edit where you have all the bits of you talking and you've just got to edit out every little mistake, make all the takes perfect so you can then put all the other stuff on. That part was pretty labor intensive. Judah Hughes asks, what hidden gems of Ringo's discography did you unearth, and what or when was the point that you realized this had to be the biggest ranking video of all? The hidden gem, as I said before, was probably Scouse the Mouse. Not that it falls into a album, which I think is why it's a hidden gem, because it's by the way, that's why that video is also, because I think it's also just a fun way to end the video and it's a good credit song. That's why I can use the whole song as credits, because it's not on streaming anywhere. It doesn't have any rights to pay. It was a kid's audio tape story from the 70s that no one's bothered to like do anything with. Someone's just uploaded it to YouTube and I was like, oh, no one copyright claims this, so great, I'll just put it in the credits. By the way, if you are hearing this now, don't do that, because there are some scum of the earth people that find songs that don't have like a rights holder and they just somehow become the rights holder and then they copyright claim other people's videos. Don't do that. Yeah, that was a hidden gem. And the point where I realized it had to be the biggest ranking video of all, well, it was the point when I was like, oh, Ringo has the same amount of albums basically as Paul McCartney, double the amount of albums of George and John, and no one's ever gone in depth in this man's life. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it really big. Jeremy Pierce asks, was part of the reason for retiring the number rating system was due to the overall quality of Ringo's discography, i.e. it would have been anticlimactic if Ringo's best album is listed as an 8 out of a 10. That's a good question. Why did I retire the out of 10 rating system? Well, yeah, it is a bit like that. Because although I love the Ringo album, it's not a 10 out of 10. And for Paul and for George, I gave both of those ended on a 10 out of 10 with Ram and All Things Must Pass. I think John's ended on a 9.5, which is still pretty high. Yeah, Ringo was not going to get that high. There was just going to be so many albums that sit around between like a 4 and a 7. You know, so many albums of his are just like 5 out of 10s. And it's just not compelling. It's just not interesting. And also, going forward, if I talk about something like the Beatles, for example, one time, if I rank their albums, that feels really dumb to be like, oh, this album is a 9 out of 10. It's like, you're talking about the Beatles, you idiot. Shut up. Those albums do not need to be talked about in that way. And neither did Ringo's, for kind of the opposite reason. But yeah. Herbal Jazz Cigarette, that's what I call them as well, asks, who do you think would win in a fight between Yellow Submarine Ringo, Beatles cartoon Ringo, Simpsons Ringo, and Powerpuff Girl Ringo? Definitely Powerpuff Girl Ringo. That guy has... Have you seen what he can do? He can do amazing magical things. He would definitely win. Jevin asks, what is a Christmas song that should have been on I Want to Be Santa Claus? Wow, I've never thought about that. What should have been on there? I mean, all the songs are fine. It's just the arrangements are terrible. It would have been funny to hear him do an All I Want for Christmas Is You. I wasn't really pining for many other Christmas carols, I gotta say. I wasn't really wishing he stuck Silent Night on there or anything like that. Days Jones asks, you mentioned Ringo's collaboration with Harry Nilsson a lot. Thoughts on Nilsson's body of work? I quite like Harry Nilsson's albums. I haven't listened to them all. I'm a big fan of The Point. I love The Point. I love Nilsson Schmilsson. And Son of Schmilsson is pretty good too. But outside of that, I need to do more work in terms of plowing through his discography. Yeah, I love The Point. It's my favorite album to fall asleep to on a plane. Alexandra Perry asks, I know Look Up was kind of a surprise as Ringo previously said he was done with full albums. Do you think Ringo has one more album left in him? Well, yeah, he thinks so. He's releasing one in February, apparently, another country album produced by T-Bone Burnett. I think there'll be somewhat of a Rubber Soul Revolver, a Kid A Amnesiac, you know, like Look Up and whatever else the new country album is. Yeah, I think Look Up was, you know, quite a good album. So if he does another one like that, then I don't see why it wouldn't be any good. I don't know if he has any after that, but who knows? Like, the man's unstoppable. Brian Bradley asks, was the October 20th release going perfectly with Ringo's famous update video, A Happy Accident? I kind of answered this already. It was, like, I never thought about that until I was making the teaser, because I thought the video would be out like way earlier than October. So I was like, October 20th, why would I pitch that as a release date? But when it seemed that October was like the Goldilocks zone of a release date, I was like, wait, October 20th. It works perfectly. Yeah, it was a happy accident. That turned out to be not so accurate because it got delayed due to copyright. And from what I can tell is the final question. Craig Hilton asks, in your mock-up of the art gallery of Ringo's artwork with the dark red walls, did you use a photograph of the National Gallery of Victoria? No, I believe that's a photo from a gallery in Europe or America. Can't remember, but it's not the NGV. That's it. That's all the questions. Well, this bonus video that was meant to be more of a cruisy one has ended up being probably longer than any of the other ones I've made in the last year or so. Probably won't be doing a lot of editing over the top of this one, as you will have just seen. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the length. Now to get to the part of the video where I tell you what I'm going to be working on. Now, the answer to this question for the last few months, several months, has been I'm editing the Ringo video, but what am I working on now? Well, we'll see. I've got a feeling I'll be probably doing something on the anthology. I don't know whether to do 2 separate videos on the anthology music and then a separate one on the anthology documentary, or if I should combine it into all one big anthology video. What do you guys think? What should I do there? Answer in the comments for me. A few people have asked, I will eventually make a video, an updated video about the Beatles biopics now that several more of the cast have been announced. I want just a few more casting announcements made. Like I want to know who's playing George Martin. I want to know just a few more confirmed characters before I jump in on this. Because I do have a bit to say, and I would like to talk about this film that no one can be normal about. Yeah, that's something I'll be working on probably at some point. And a few other things that I'm not prepared to say just yet. Anyway, that's it for the video. Thank you so much. I just want to say at the end of this very long bonus video that I really appreciate all of your support during this period. I probably should have said this at the top, but I'm saving it for the end. There were several months that I wasn't making any YouTube videos, and you all remained well, not all of you. Some of you have come back, some of you have gone, but so many of you stuck around and supported me during this time while I was making this video, and I hope you all feel that the payoff was worth it and that you feel like your money is going towards a good cause, and that is the videos that I create. It means a lot to me that you all contribute to this crazy little project of mine. I never want to take it for granted. Thank you all so much. You're all amazing. Yeah, that's where I'm going to leave you. I'm getting a bit delirious after this one. Anyway, thanks everyone. Don't know when I'll see you again. Probably for next month's bonus video. Okay, goodbye.